Good morning, Kahal Kadosh. Beruchim Habayim to everybody. Erev Shabbat Kodesh, Perashat Kitavo, Makam Siga. Today's class, graciously sponsored by David Zohar and family for the speedy recovery for the Refuah Shelema of his dear father, Reuven Ben Munir. Yehi Ratzon, that his father has a Refuah Shelema among all of the Holim of Am Israel. Amen. So let's do the following today. Let's wrap up the second chapter of Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, and then we'll devote a few minutes to the parasha of today. So yesterday we discussed the importance of respecting every person. Doesn't matter who they are. By respecting them, we are respecting HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because at the end of the day, the person was created in the essence of godliness. And it says that many, many times, and this is how he finished at the end. You know, in English they tell you, don't judge a book by its cover. What does that mean? Marketing is very powerful, correct? And sometimes through marketing, they sell you a book because it has a nice jacket. It has a nice cover, multicolor, words that stick out. Or you see a person and you say, oh, he's dressed so nice. He wears brand name items. He's so elegant, so color coordinated. This person must be a great person. Rabbi Moshe Cordovero says that maybe the person is a great person, but the moment that we judge someone based on the external looks or the external wrapping of the body, that means the clothing, it says we are missing the point of what does it mean, the essence of a person. Now, and it says that this mindset, it will help the person to turn and to develop the potential good elements that a person has in the neshama. The next topic, which is actually a continuation of this, is referring now to the concept of animals. Animals are also a creation. We know that in the world of creation, and this was discussed in the early days of the Tomer Devora, in the world of creation, there are 4 levels of creation. One is called domem. Domem means inanimate objects, items that they don't move by themselves. They have life because otherwise they will not be an object. But unless something happens, they remain stationary forever. For example, a mountain. What is a mountain? How does a mountain become a mountain? That's the combination of water and earth. And it grows, it grows, it grows. And once the mountain reaches a certain peak, a certain height, stops growing. And that's what a mountain is. A mountain, to a certain concept, is under the category of domain. That's why, in English, you ever go to a bookstore and they sell you a manual of internet for dummies, okay, computer science for dummies. Why they call it dummy? Because dummy comes from the word domem. That's the root word of that. Yani a dummy means yani una estatua. Yani someone who has no sechel. So they're telling you that even you have no brain, if you read this book, you learn about history, you learn about computer science. That's why in English, they call such a derogatory word dummy. Dummy means that you're not really developing the potential that God gave you. Right? Beautiful. Next level, it's called someah. Things that grow and flourish. For example, fruits, vegetables, trees, flowers, correct? Then we have the third level. That's called high. animal kingdom. And then Medaber, the human body, the creation of mankind. What does that mean? That really, between a human and an animal, there is not much difference. Yes, there are differences. Your speech, right? You can communicate. Your intelligence, your sechel, although animals emit sounds, but animals don't speak. Animals have a brain, but a brain of an animal, limited to their capacity the way God created them. Humans have something called Behira Hofshit, the freedom of choice. I can decide I'm going to have decaf coffee or regular coffee. I'm going to have mint tea or I'm going to have raspberry pomegranate tea. Sounds interesting.
What do you prefer?
It's a great question. I'm not a big fan of tea unless I need it. I'm more of a friend of coffee. But not too heavy, please. Anyways, I already had my double dosage of coffee earlier before saying hot, so I don't want to be in overdrive so early in the morning. But let's continue. So really, humans and animals are very close in the level of creation. So how is the Talmudic term of a human being? Medaber. In other words, you are a human that speaks the faculty of talking, and therefore it behooves the person not to speak like an animal. And I apologize in advance if this came out stronger than actually was expected. But how many times you see this? That people, God forbid, the way they talk, you don't understand how can a person talk this way. And that's why the Torah reminds us, "Velo yira'eh becha irvat davar b'shav me'achorecha." Make sure that your speech is not naked. What does that mean, naked? You like the body. Let me ask you a question. Do we walk around dressed or undressed? Dressed. Although there are people in the world, maybe that walk around undressed, but that's not the norm. The derecheres of society is to be dressed, at least from a Yehudi perspective. The Goyim perspective, the less material the garment has, the more you pay for it. They take advantage of you. They sell you something on a mini size, you pay more than a full size. Okay? Baruch haba. Legabra Rabbah. So the Rabbi Moshe Cordovero says, yesterday we spoke about humans. Today we'll speak about animals. We already gave the brief introduction in the difference between humans and animals. In the world of the animal kingdom, there are different levels. You have behema, haya, of, dagim. You have animals, domesticated animals, wild animals, birds, and fishes. You have insects and all kinds of things, but that's give or take how the animal kingdom is divided. So he brings here a very interesting concept. Let me just find the proper space. Right here. It says, Sarich Rahamav Perushim al Kol Hanivraim. You be surprised at the Hidush of Rabbi Moshe Cordovero that's going to come up in a few minutes. I'm telling you this because the opening statement says the person must have their compassion spread out to all creations. Lo yebazem velo yabedem. Don't mistreat them and don't destroy them. Wait, because I'm sure you're going to have questions. So, Rabbi, I cannot cut the grass of my home? Yes, you can, but we'll give you the guidelines. So it says, 1, Shehare And he says verbatim, החוכמה העליונה, godly wisdom, פירושה על כל הנפרעים, דומם, שומע, חי, מדבר. He says, don't think for a minute, says Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, that godliness is revealed through a human that is able to speak, even through animals, even through growth, and even through inanimate objects. Godliness is revealed in their level. And he gives here the footnote, a great introduction, and it says, like the person has mazal, like the person has a godly spirit for the person to be alive, even inanimate objects, they need to have that in order to function, in order to exist. Otherwise, the mountains will collapse. And now with this, we are able to understand why sometimes in the essence of the world, and I'm not talking about Afghanistan, that's a fiasco. But for example, hurricanes, snowstorms, rain, hail, weather, cold weather front. It's a pasuk from our daily prayers. Esh, ubarad, shelek bekitor, esh, fire, barad, hail, snow, and volcano, ruach se'ara, the hurricanes, osa de baror. A hurricane can only be activated with Hashem's granting him or her. The one coming up is a her. It's called Ida. We had Henry the other day, big miracle. Ida. It's called Ida. Okay. Ida is in Spanish. Ida is in English. But it's a good name because Ida in Spanish means left. Yani left. Go to the Pacific. Go to the Indian Ocean. Just don't touch population. Okay? But the verse says in the book of Tehillim, I think chapter 148, towards the end, Ruach Sara, hurricanes, Osa Devora. They fulfill Hashem's will. I'll add one more. That as we notice creation, we see the upgrades from a mountain to a flower or to a fruit. The night of Tu B'Shvat, that we do the tikkun known as Peri Es Hadar. We learned one night that one of the main reasons that berachot are essential, besides expressing gratitude to Hashem, the affordability of the beracha, or the food, and the possibility of not only to afford it, but to be able to eat it, it says that the malach, let's call it the mazal, in charge of that tree, let's say the apple tree, easy, gets the power to inject godly powers into the apple trees achieved by the beracha of a Jew. What does that mean? That by you and I, or any one of us, saying the beracha on a coffee, somehow we're sending a text message to the malach in charge of the coffee, and that gives him the power to transfer over the hayut, that's how the Rabbi Yosef Galimidi calls it, the livelihood, or the life rather, of Hashem into the coffee beans. How many times you go to a supermarket and you want to buy fruits or vegetables, they tell me, no, this season we did not have any. Why not? According to the Perias Hadar, because not enough berachot were said to generate the reaction on that particular year from Tu B'Shvat. Unbelievable. You're saying a beracha now, and it's going to be like an option stock market. I want it to be activated on the day of Tu B'Shvat. Of course there are seasons, of course, but you have to understand that the deposit of the berachot, it needs to be done by Tu Bishvat. And once the season comes, that's when they start flourishing. That's why you have 4 seasons in the year. You have the spring, the summer, the fall, and the winter. And each one on their time. Shlomo Melech says, Davar ve'ito matov. You know, everything on its proper time. And it says even further, and it says, Kulam bechokhma asita. Chapter 101 of the book of Tehillim, Barechi Nafshi. Marabu ma'asecha amonai kulam bechokhma asita maliha aris kinyanecha. What does it mean? This verse, Marabu ma'asecha Hashem, literally means, how great are your creations, God. Actually, if you travel to a place and you see something unique, you should say this pasuk, Marabu ma'asecha Hashem. You go to the Grand Canyon, right? You go to Mount Rushmore. You go to the Niagara Falls. Obviously for us, the ocean, the palm trees, is not a big deal. You wake up in the morning, you say to the ocean, good morning, right? But many people who don't see this, don't live in this type of city, you know, they see the ocean, what they see? Gan Eden. So it says, Kulam bechokhma asita. It says Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, actually Tehillim 104, every one of the creations, they carry a godly element. Because if they don't have the godly element, that's the end of the life of that item. And he brings now a powerful Gemara in Masechet Baba Mesiah. And before I tell the story, and it says, Ken yura hameha adam al kol ma'asav itbarach. It says, your compassion needs to be extended. Now, the Gemara brings a story on Rabbi Yehuda. And the story was that once there was the group of students with Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, and they wanted to grab a goat, I think, or a sheep to do shechita. And this animal, right, ran and hide itself under the cloak of Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi. Right? No, wait. No, zil. Ki lekach nosarta. The language of the Gemara says, get out of here. You were created to be slaughtered. Now, according to the Mekubalim, you have to understand that this Gemara is not so simple. That according to the holy writings, this animal was a gilgul of a person. And the tikkun of this animal was to become a kosher animal and to be slaughtered according to Jewish law, and that will have been the tikkun. Because you have to understand, the tikkun of the soul, it can come in 4 levels, by the way. The first 3 times, it goes as humans. The second round, as animals. The third round, as trees, as flowers. We learned this when? Birkat HaIlanot. Where do we say Birkat HaIlanot? May be the will of the Almighty, that in the event that their souls connected to the trees should be released and go back to Gan Eden. Listen to this halakha. Mahloket. Can you say Beracha HaIlanot on Shabbat or not? Hold on. Wait. Why not? No. It says Kaf HaHaim HaKadosh, you do borer. You are separating the neshama. You are separating the neshama from the tree on Shabbat. Hacham Rabbi Yosef respects that opinion, but it says no. The whole idea of borer is when it comes to something physical. But when it comes to make a tikkun of a neshama, it's something spiritual, and therefore you're allowed to do it on a Shabbat. But there is such a debate in the halakha. But if you look in the Birkat HaIlanot paragraph of the extra prayer, besides the Beracha, is saying exactly what we are saying now. That many times, the Shamot, we never do it on Shabbat. We do it during the weekday. We don't wait till Shabbat. Now, so brings the Gemara, and it says that after Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, right, he got punished with severe stomach pains for years. For years. Until one day, they were learning in the Bet Midrash. I think it was a hamster or whatever, like a mouse, something.
Chickens that were going up the ladder, no?
No, that's not it. No. It's a different Gemara story. So they saw like a rat was roaming around the room, and the students wanted to kill the animal. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi says, open the door, let the animal leave. And that day, he started to heal. Because he demonstrated Rahamim on this animal. From one extreme to the other. And it says, Rabbeinu Moshe Cordovero, Amar Lahem, the Gemara says, to the students, Shabekinhu, let it go. Shene'emar berahamav al kol ma'asav. The person must learn how to display compassion on every creation. Shamayim said, Ho'il berichem rahmenan leh. Because he showed some level of compassion, he learned the lesson of a few years back. Now let's send the Malach Raphael to heal Rabbi Yehuda and Nasi. And it says even further, let me just read the sentence. It says, why was he, Gemara Baba Messiah, page 85. Why was he punished? Because he said to the animal, go, you were created for this. So he says, Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, that the midat adin, the attribute of judgment, gets camouflaged with the midat rahamim. Meaning to say, the more compassion the person shows, the more compassion the person receives, that creates a buffer to judgment. But because of who Rabbi Yehuda Nasi was, and the way he talked to the animal, he said, you activated din on the animal because shechita is din. Remember we discussed this a while back in the name of the Ben Ish Hai that explains the spiritual reason why meat and dairy cannot be mixed. Meat by itself kosher, dairy by itself kosher, you mix and becomes taref. Why becomes taref? Short answer, because the meat and the dairy, meat and milk, they represent two extremes from Kabbalistic perspective. The milk represents rahamim, the compassion. You milk the cow. You ease the pain from the animal. The milk is white. The white, what color is it? Tahara, kedusha, holiness, right? Not only that, you take the milk from the animal, and the animal keeps producing milk.
You have to.
Right. The beef is the opposite. You have to kill the animal. You have to slaughter. Let's be politically correct. You have to slaughter the animal. That's knife. That's a knife. A knife is a din. Then you have the blood. You have to do meriha. You have to remove the blood from the meat. And what color is the meat? Red. So now all these elements, they represent din, judgment. And the milk represents rahamim. And therefore you don't mix them. Because if you mix them, neshama goes into a short circuit. Because we cross over the din to the rahamim and the rahamim to the din. Now you may say, but Rabbi, perhaps we should not eat meat, right? So the short answer is that first of all, there was a time in history for maybe 1600 years that no one ate meat. No one ate meat till after the Mabul, after Noah. That's when the world started to eat meat. And obviously we eat meat, but we follow the proper protocols, and the Torah gives the green light to eat meat. Be'al derech ze, and through this way, lo yebazeh shum nimtza min hanimtzaim. It says, never mistreat any creation ולא יעקור השומח אלא לצורך. So what about cutting grass? Can I cut grass or not?
It's like the milk.
Wait, let's understand. We know that there is a halakha that says that a person is not allowed to cut down a fruit-bearing tree. There is such a halakha. If you have a fruit-bearing tree, you cannot cut it. And right, not lichrot, it's ma'achal, it's a biblical commandment, negative commandment. Now, there are exceptions to this statement. If the tree is dangerous, or the tree is uprooting your home, so to speak, in that case, you hire a goy to do the work on your behalf. That is a way to circumvent the Torah prohibition. Why the prohibition?
Roses, flowers like roses.
Not a problem, talking about food bearing. But now he's talking about cutting someach. He says, if you have a need, let's say, if you let the grass grow more than 5 inches, the city will send you a warning. Right? Citation. Haz v'shalom. Should never happen. True story, by the way. There are rules and regulations on the height of the grass. 4 inches, 6 inches. You know, even when it comes to trees. For example, synagogues and public places, they must have, I think, 30% green space.
Coverage.
Right, of green, right. So obviously, if you need to cut it because you need to comply with a rule, or it's going too wild and it's really messy and dirty and really it's crawling into your home, definitely you're allowed to cut it. But let's say that you see a fly, or you see a mosquito, or you see a lagartija. How do you say lagartija? A lizard, thank you. You see a lizard, don't kill them. Send them away. That's the message of today. Now, what's the benefit of you doing that? That suddenly Shamayim says, hey, look at Raphael. He was conscientious not killing the fly. He was conscientious of not killing the lizard. He opened the window to let the bird go. Guess what? On that moment, what? You can use spray, of course. If they damage you, if they hurt you, you know, you don't throw it to the animal, just throw it to the air. That question came up a while back. So I believe reading that it says, spray in the air. He's saying, what if you follow the fly with a spray? So I recall reading somewhere many years ago, it says throw in the air.
Like you don't see them.
You don't just throw in the air. That creates, they will pass and they will leave. That's called irama. That's called a third aspect. You know, if the animals bother or they are dangerous, God forbid, you have to do what you need to do. But the message it's basically clear is, don't think for a moment that God only cares about the human. The human may be the ultimate and the highest level of creation and the closer creation that can connect with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, but it says godliness comes in different sizes. It's like diamonds. Because the diamond is big, automatically it's valuable? No, correct? It depends on the cut, right? Color, clarity, class, the couple C's, there are 3 C's, 4 C's, 4 C's, no Z's, C's, we'll see as Charlie, because that will be zirconium, right? It has to be diamond, right? Diamond. And what happens?
4 seasons.
Sometimes the raw stones could be big. By the time you polish it and shape it, now it became like 1 carat. The bulk is much cheaper than the finished product. And you say, hold on a minute, that rock is bigger, why it should be more than this one? But that one is not clean, it's not processed. So an animal may be huge, but at the end of the day, is an animal. But the person, the sky is the limit. Animals have limitations, as I said before, in the power of speech. They make sounds, they bark, but they don't communicate like humans do. You were born in Afghanistan?
No. Uzbekistan.
Uzbekistan, I'm sorry. Okay, not far. Okay, Uzbekistan.
Next to Afghanistan.
Next door to Afghanistan. Baruch Hashem. Okay, Uzbekistan. And you were born where? America, but you were born in Venezuela. Okay, so your native language is Spanish. His native language is Russian. And guess what? Both of you have enough intelligence that learn English and you were able to communicate. This is in the human way of life. But when it comes to the animal kingdom, you ever see a giraffe talking to a donkey? Or a dog talking to a camel? No. Okay? So it says, Ze Akelal. Bottom line, says Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, and then we'll finish today's chapter, I believe, and we'll begin chapter number 4, Be'ezat Hashem, on Sundays. And it says, Ahemla al kol hanimsaim. It says, bottom line, compassion must be demonstrated towards every level of creation. And it says that the mission of the person is to elevate matters. What does that mean? Basic explanation on the regular way of life. And the Baal Shem Tov touches on that point of Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, and he says it beautifully. The Baal Shem Tov says, the mission of a Jew is to take something that is physical and make it spiritual. How? Excellent question. Very simple. You have a cup of coffee, you say a beracha. You ate a bagel, you say beracha before and after. You have a garment, you test it for sharpness. You have money, you give tzedakah. You provide for the needy. You do XYZ mitzvot. You have the power of speech, you filter your speech. These are simple, basic examples. But it says Rabbi Moshe Cordovero that there is another element. And guess what? I have seen this concept in action. You know, many times when a person sits down to eat on the Shabbat table, many people have the custom, they say, Yichvot Shabbat Kodesh. You know what that means? Basically, you're about to eat the fish, and you say, Yichvot Shabbat Kodesh. You're about to eat the meat, Yichvot Shabbat Kodesh. It is not mandatory to do so. It is not obligated, but it's suggested. I personally try to do it. Why? Because when you say these words, Lichvot Shabbat Kodesh, you gave an upgrade to that food that you are eating. Even though that this food was cooked for Shabbat, but you're telling your neshama, relax, I have something for you, Lichvot Shabbat Kodesh. So I heard many years back a shiur that says that even when a person is going to go to the supermarket and you're going to do purchases for Shabbat, should say, Yichvot Shabbat Kodesh. You know, like the halacha says, don't say, I'm buying meat for Pesach. There is halacha. It says, don't say, I'm buying meat for Pesach. Why not? Because you're insinuating that you're buying meat for the Korban Pesach. So what are you supposed to say? I'm buying meat for the holiday, for the Hag, for the Yom Tov. True halacha, black and white. Right? Not, let's clarify, relax. It's not, God forbid, a transgression. What I'm trying to highlight is that it does make a difference. So once I heard that shiur, I made my own derasha. If you go to the supermarket to buy flowers, Yichvot Shabbat Kodesh, which I'm sure many people do, which is a beautiful gesture to do. So I said to myself, what if my wife asks me to go buy tomatoes or apples, Yichvot Shabbat Kodesh? So I painted the following movie in my brain. I'm coming to the supermarket. I'm looking at the Apple display. And I said to myself,
Apple display.
right? Who will have the zechut of being on my Shabbat table? That was all in my mind. I said, but hold on. If I pick this apple, the one next to it is going to feel bad. And the one behind it is going to feel bad. They're going to say, I want to be in your house. I want to be eaten for Shabbat. By the way, you think that I'm kidding you? In the Hasidic world, and I think many Sephardim do it also, but definitely in the Hasidic world, there is an interesting tradition. What is the tradition? That Shabbat Kodesh, Friday night, and Shabbat day. You know, on Shabbat we eat fish, but on Shabbat we also eat meat. What the halacha says? You must create a separation between fish and beef or chicken.
Why?
To protect your health. The Gemara writes a combination of these two foods in your body can bring sakana of Sara. So how do you separate between the fish and the meat? Halachically, ideally is to do netilat yadayim. That's called ma'im emsa'im. So you have 3 washing of the hands on Shabbat. Before bread, between fish and meat, and ma'im aharonim. Obviously, the one in the middle is strongly suggested, not mandatory, like number 1 and number 3. And they're not really halachot. Just rinse your fingertips and rinse your mouth. Then you eat something. But in the Hasidic tradition, they drink some alcoholic beverage. Schnapps or wine. I do wine. I don't have schnapps at home.
21-year scotch is good.
No, believe me, thank God, I'm not a friend of scotch or schnapps or bromful, or maybe bromful a bit. Okay, no vodka, no arak. Thank God, Baruch Hashem. Why? Okay, wait. You have to understand the reason why. So I asked one Hasidic fellow, I said, why do you need to drink if according to the halacha, eat a piece of bread? So in the Hasidic world that I was exposed to in my younger years, I was invited a few Shabbatot to our neighbor in Brazil, and we noticed that after the hamotzi, after the fish, obviously pick up the plates, everybody went to wash the hands, rinse the mouth, came back to the table, they ate a piece of bread, and they used to bring this delicious mixture of eggs and onions, diced in small pieces. So I figure the reason they do that is to wash part of the digestive system, to push down the fish, so the meat and the fish don't see each other. Although once it goes down the gallbladder, who knows what happens inside, but once you pass that line, I think that you are covered. I think the prevention is here in the esophagus. So I saw that the husband brought alcohol. And in my teenage innocence, I said, why do you need to drink alcohol? And you know what he told me? Something that I accept. I believe in it. Because there is things written about it. It says that the neshamot of tzaddikim, the best tikkun for them is a fish. Because they are tzaddikim, their tikkun is limited. A person who really needs to do a tikkun, and after he missed 3 opportunities as reincarnation as a human, becomes an animal. That's what's written in the holy books. But then, for the tikkun of the animal to happen, he needs to have the zechut of being a kosher animal, of being slaughtered, of being kasher, of coming to a Shabbat table or to a Jewish table, that beracha before and after is being recited. Look how many steps that tikkun requires. Fish is in a much higher level than beef. Fish is the highest, chicken is the middle, and beef is the lowest. Why? Short answer. The more tikkunim it needs. The meat, you need to do shehita, bedikat pnim, nikur, kashering, meliha, adaha, etc. Chicken, and the animal is a quadruped, 4 legs on the ground. The chicken, small shehita knife, very easy to kasher, very easy to inspect, 2 feet on the ground, 2 wings flying. The 2 wings represent connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The 2 feet on the ground represents connection to the ground. So you have the beef is 100% homer. That's why it's called hamor. The animal, hamor. Why is it called hamor? Because it's a heavy duty animal, heavyweight animal that is very much attached to the ground. And that connection to the ground, it's called homer, materialism. The chicken, 50% material, 2 feet on the ground, 2 wings to fly. The fish lives in the water. The water is Torah. You take the fish out of the water, that's the tikkun of the fish. That's the shechita of the fish. So from a Kabbalistic perspective,
You don't need to eat, basically, if they already took out.
no shechita, nothing. Make sure that it's kasher, check for the scales and fins, and then you clean it and you eat it.
Suddenly, if you don't eat that fish, it's still past the tikkun or not?
I cannot answer that question. I'm not too knowledgeable on that. I only know something. I hear your question. His question is, if you pull the fish out of the water, if the tikkun was made, I'm not sure that it's going to be a full tikkun. Although we have heard stories in the past that certain tikkunim require minimal effort. Like for example, a child being conceived by parents that went to the mikveh, so to speak, and that's the tikkun of the child. You understand? And sometimes the tikkun is longer. Now, so this fellow told me that when the tzaddik comes to the tikkun through the fish and comes to the Shabbat table and they say the berachot and they say the kiddush, the tzaddik is very happy. But then once it enters the stomach of the person and sees internally what's going on and where the remnants of the food will go down the toilet, he says, for this I came to the tikkun. So they drink a bit of alcohol. That's what he told me. In order to calm the mind of the tikkun of the fish, I know it's a joke, but understand the reasoning.
There's a source for this?
No, he said it. He didn't tell me the source. You're going to believe it or not. I'm not telling you to take it or not. But definitely there is a worldwide tradition in the Hasidic world that that's exactly what they do to separate fish and meat. Obviously, who are we to truly understand this deep topic of tikkunim? And I think that the message of Rabbi Moshe Cordovero was to tell us, don't believe that you are the ultimate creation in the world. God has different ambassadors. One is called Domem, one is called Hai, one is called Someach, and you're Medaber. Yes, you are the king. The human is the ultimate level. And because we are the ultimate level, so it's up to us to magnify Hashem's existence in the world through our actions and interacting with everyone else, not only humans, but everything else. You know, sometimes when children walk around, what they do, they pull flowers. Based on what we learned today, doesn't seem to be the proper action. If you have a need, because you're calling the life of the flower. If you're going to take the flower and you're going to say to your wife, sweetheart, I saw this flower and I thought of you, and you give it to her, you are a romantic fellow. That's a big tikkun for your shalom bayit.
And you'll have good fish tonight.
And you have good fish tonight. Okay, it all depends. If you need to cut the grass because it's too high, or you're going to take some flowers for the Shabbat table, that's also not a zechut.
Also recycling. Instead of
Right? Of destroying it, you recycle it.
using it in second purpose.
My dear friends, I wish everybody Shabbat Shalom.
Amen.
Okay? ברוך אדוני לעולם, אמן ואמן. רבי חנניה בן הקשה אומר, רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לזכות את ישראל לפיכך, הרבה לנטול המצוות שנאמן אדוני חפץ למען צדקו, יגדיל תורה וידיר קדיש.
גדל וגדל שמי הרבה.
אמן.